So one thing that I'm continually surprised with YouTube, which I guess at this stage in the game it shouldn't really surprise me much anymore, but it's kind of how well some of my videos that I figure when I make them are relatively benign generate a lot of interest and views and comments on them. And one of them is fan videos. Now, I didn't know before YouTube was a thing that there was such a following in between fans and vacuum cleaners and toasters and literally every other sort of appliance you could think of that anybody else would think was just somewhat benign or, not really anything that anybody can be an enthusiast about. Well, like with most things, the internet proves you to be wrong a lot of the time, especially on stuff like that. But I figured, partially because I know a lot of you guys do appreciate this stuff, I figured I would make a video about this fan that I picked up. I found this thing in the trash. My city does a local curbside pickup where each neighborhood does, every 6 months, you can pretty much throw out anything you want. Minus hazardous chemicals and stuff of that nature, like rubber tires from cars and everything. But you're allowed to pretty much throw out a lot of different things, and one of the main things people tend to throw away are appliances. This can include refrigerators, washers and dryers, large freezers. I've seen all sorts of stuff that people have thrown away. I would say about 50-60% of it, at least as far as appliances go, and even these fans, are just not really worth picking up. But this one I decided to pick up because it caught my eye. I knew right off the bat when I first saw this thing that it was an older fan. I didn't know how old until I did a little bit of research on the internet. But I picked this thing up because I knew that this house that I just bought was not going to have any ceiling fans in it. And, I'm kind of cheap on that regard, and I have no problem using older, even more vintage stuff in my house, as long as it functions as it was intended. And this fan, on the other hand, it's honestly a really nice addition to this house. Now, I did take this thing completely apart before I put it up. It had about a 3-foot down rod on it, so it probably came from a vaulted ceiling or a fairly high ceiling. I would guess maybe, 12 feet at least where it was mounted. And before I put it up there, obviously I cleaned it out. This thing was really dusty down below here. And I split the body in half. There's only those 4 screws that go through it. It was pretty easy to take apart, but I vacuumed out everything inside it. And then, you guys can't really see it, but up above, that was just chock full of dust. It was basically just coming out of the holes. Now, it's not a perfect cleaning job by any means, but in all honesty, I'm happy with how it turned out. This fan, I don't know why they threw it away, other than the fact that maybe it was just old and the guy's wife didn't like it. But before I put it up as well, I did make sure to lube the bearings both on the bottom and on the top when I had the halves split open with some of this 3-in-1 motor oil. Honestly, I don't know if it really needed it. I figured at the very least it would just be preventative maintenance, I guess you could say. Because when I spun the motor with no blades on it, just, I held it in one hand and spun the motor with the other, and I spun it a few times really fast. I didn't hear any bearing noise. I don't really think, other than, the air hitting the arms, I don't really think there was any other noise worth noting. And that was before I oiled the bearings. But I don't know why they threw this thing away. I really don't. I did have to buy a smaller down rod for it, as well as a 3/4 to 1/2 inch adapter, because this thing does take a 1/2 inch down rod. Not a huge deal to convert that. You can just buy the coupler kit. And I got all these parts from Lowe's. And unfortunately, I don't have the little cup that goes over there, so you can't really see that. But it doesn't bother me. It is what it is. This thing is only 3 speeds, and it does appear that it did at least have a light kit offered with it. And I say that because there was a separate blue wire in the set of wires that came out. There was, you know, the white, the black, and there was a blue wire. Well, it doesn't have any lights hooked up to it, but that's probably what that was for. This cap here, you'd probably just remove that and get to it that way. But the fan is properly grounded. In fact, with the, I can't remember if it was the down rod, I think it was the down rod. It came with a new ground kit for it. So that's grounded. The bracket mount for it is grounded. And then obviously those two wires are grounded to the house. So all in all, I think I did pretty good with this little fan. I still need to polish up the blades a little bit, but let's go ahead and turn her on. I don't know how much the camera's picking up, but other than the blades moving air, I can't even really tell that this thing is on. It's not making any noises. And what's even more interesting about this thing is, from the limited amount of information I was able to find on the internet, this is a Panasonic F-5215A. I'm guessing there's probably a B or a C model that came with the lights, or you know, other things, but this one is just a basic fan. It's just got 3 speeds and off, of course. Best I can tell, this thing was manufactured in 1985. It was assembled here in the States out of, according to the sticker, domestic and foreign components, so I have no idea how much of it's made in China. I would think that not a lot, but I could be wrong. Very interesting fact about this is this fan was apparently manufactured in 1985, somewhere around there in the mid-80s. This fan came out of a newer neighborhood, and by newer I mean the house I got it from, I would guess the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s. So whoever had this thing, and whatever reason they threw it out, they apparently either found it used somewhere or took it with them from their old house. Why they threw it away, as I've already said, I have no idea why. It moves air just fine. Doesn't make any noise. And at low speeds, you can't even tell that it's on. I do need to put a different string on it, or chain rather, but it's not a big deal to me, and that's why I haven't done it. But all in all, I'm happy I kind of picked this thing up, and I just noticed that there was no other videos really on these older Panasonic ceiling fans, so I decided to make a video. I hope you guys enjoyed it though. I do have a few other ceiling fans that I could make videos about, I guess, if you guys care enough to see them. But this is really the only one of a vintage nature that's worth noting in that regard. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, or those of you who appreciate these kind of things appreciated it. And stay tuned for more. You all stay classy.